Welcome back. So just a little bit more about the observable pattern before we continue. We are using right now the HTTP client to make a request to the backend, get a reply back at some point of time. That's an async call. Now observables are going to help us doing that. And actually one thing that the Angular tool does automatically is unsubscribe. When we're talking to an observable, actually we'll keep listening until somebody unsubscribes. Now Angular is so polite that when we use the HTTP client right now, it will automatically unsubscribe. But there are reasons or areas where you do not unsubscribe. For instance, with socket communication, you'll keep listening. You won't unsubscribe. You'll just keep listening until somebody tells you to stop listening. And that's actually a problem because sometimes that can create memory leaks. So in reality, we should be better at unsubscribing our code every time you're using an observable. And I just encourage you all to do that. It's extremely important to remember, even though Angular helps us right now, maybe we're changing this later to another client that doesn't unsubscribe for us. So I'm going to be kind of rude and say we should always unsubscribe. So let's jump back to our code and make sure that we unsubscribe whenever we've called this method right here because we're working with an observable. There are a few ways to do that. Let's jump into the product list component. This is where we're subscribing right here. And the first way I want to show you is the old way that we did it. So we'll jump into our code right here. And actually when we subscribe, it's going to return something for us. So let's just again mouse over right here. You'll notice what it returns is actually going to be a subscription. So right here, the blue in the end of this line, you can see it says subscription. And that subscription, we can save that. So I'll say this dot product subscription like this equals, and then I'll just make a local subscription right here by creating that field. Now we'll keep it private because I'm not going to use it anywhere outside the code, and I'll just make it can also be undefined like this. And there we go. Now we have the subscription available, so we can use that later on to kind of unsubscribe. And again, just to kind of summarize, don't worry, you will unsubscribe automatically as long as you're using the HTTP client, because that will always only make one request for you. But at the same time, if you change that to another client at some point, it's important just to unsubscribe on your own. So how do we do that? What we can do is we can say implements on init is what we call a lifecycle hook. And that means that it'll call this method right here on init. We also have another lifecycle hook called onDestroy. And that's going to be called onDestroy. So when the component is destroyed, it'll call the method called onDestroy. So we need to implement that method, and there we go. Now all we have to do is very simple. We just have to say if this dot product subscription, if that exists. You have to check if it exists, or else you might get some issues later on. If that exists, then I want to unsubscribe. There we go. So I can say product sub dot unsubscribe. Happy days. So this is like a basic way of taking care of subscription. Now there are some caveats right here. There are some problems because first of all, every time you do a subscription in a component, you have to remember to unsubscribe. And that in itself is going to be a pain. And as the code grows, you're going to have multiple subscriptions right here. You have to remember to unsubscribe on destroy. You have to do the if check every time. So next lesson, I'm going to show you a better solution. But I just want to show you guys that it's extremely important when you're using observables in Angular or in any program that you remember to unsubscribe from those observables, or else slowly you'll start getting memory leaks into your system. So that's why we need to do this, and a good developer, he knows how to do it, so he would use the lifecycle hook if needed. But next lesson I'll show you an even easier solution where we can almost do it in a one-liner instead. So that's what we're going to do next lesson. Let's just end it right here. Now you know about the unsubscribe and how you can actually call that to make sure you're not getting memory leaks because you keep listening to observables where you should actually stop listening for those observables. That's it for this lesson. See you next time. Bye.